between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living. Join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I'm Elisa.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Josh.
Now, what do we get to talk about today, Josh?
We are going to Mount Shasta.
Ooh.
It's where they make Shasta Cola.
I knew it. That's what I thought.
You go to the top and you dive in this little hole and you just swimming in soda?
Yep. Exactly what happens.
Unflavored soda, but then you got to add your flavorings.
So where do we get the flavorings?
Who's ever in it?
Oh, gross.
So gross.
Okay, I'm out.
You want to know? You don't want to know how they make grape.
Nope. I'm good.
High above the California tree line, where the air grows thin and the clouds take the shape of silver discs, stands a mountain that shouldn't be there. To geologists, Mount Shasta is a dormant volcano. To others, it's a fortress.
Fortress.
Dun, dun, dun.
For over a century, hikers, miners, and spiritual seekers have returned from these slopes with stories that defy the laws of physics. They speak of 7-foot-tall figures in shimmering white robes, the smell of ozone, and hidden entrances that vanish as quickly as they appear.
What does ozone smell like?
Ozone.
Calzones?
If you've ever had a really high voltage electrical shock happen near you, that's the smell of ozone in the air after the shock happens.
So I think a lot of people wouldn't know what it smells like.
Yeah.
Yeah, no clue.
So are these survivors of the sunken continent of Lemuria guarding the crystal city of Telos? Or is this mountain simply a mirror for the mysteries we carry inside?
Where are you taking us, Josh?
Wild ride.
Wild ride. Today we're going deep beneath the snow caps. From the gold nugget toting strangers of the 1930s to modern day astral travelers, we are exploring the strange, the tall, and the legendary. We're looking for the Lemurians of Mount Shasta.
Yeah, so I've heard of this ancient civilization before.
Yeah.
So is it like the Yetis of...
It's like an ancient people with like mystical
abilities?
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's believed that they existed around 4.5 million BC to 120,000 BC. So old. Predates all the rest of humanity.
They were alive during the dinosaurs.
They were the dinosaurs.
Wouldn't they be taller than 7 feet then?
Yes.
But we've been by Mount Shasta. We've never gone to Mount Shasta.
We have not. We've been around all sides of it.
All sides of it, yeah. And the first time we seen it, it was a beautiful, clear day, sunny, no clouds in the sky, and it was striking.
I'm sure.
Like, it's massive, but it was very striking. And in fact, I think I still have some pictures of it.
Yeah, we stopped over in the town and we're like, oh, let's take pictures of the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. So this legend begins in 1931 with a man by the name of Wishar S. Survey.
Wishar?
Where is he from?
I don't know. More than
It's
likely,
like a fancy name.
Well, given the accent over the E, it looks probably like France or Spain. So more than likely, I just mashed his name.
That's okay. We're all good at that.
So he's a researcher who spent a decade scouring ancient manuscripts, and he released a book that would rewrite human history. It was called Lemuria, the Lost Continent of the Pacific. Now, Survey didn't just claim that a continent was lost. He claimed that we were born there.
Wait, what?
Yeah. His research suggests that 200,000 years ago, our maps were unrecognizable. Asia, Africa, and the Americas were fused into a single marshy landmass.
You mean Pangea?
Yes.
Okay.
At the heart of all of it was Lemuria, also known as Mu.
Mu?
Mu, a prehistoric Garden of Eden where human civilization began. But the earth began to move. Magnetic waves surged from east to west, tearing the world apart. As the land masses drifted, the American continent moved westbound, colliding with the mountainous eastern coast of Lemuria. The rest of the continent vanished beneath the Pacific waves, leaving only its highest peaks as refuge. According to a survey, Mount Shasta wasn't just a volcano. It was the last sanctuary for the survivors. Today, the states of Washington, Oregon, and California are the only fragments of that ancient coast still above water. So we'll look into the manuscripts, the maps, and the magnetic shifts that say we're all children of the Lemurian race.
That's an interesting take.
Isn't it?
Never heard of this one before.
No. I mean, I've heard bits and pieces, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's definitely interesting.
Well, I'd be interested in hearing how he figures all of this. Like, what makes him think? What's his reasoning behind it that brought him to this conclusion?
And all of those lovely bits and pieces are all in his book, which you can still get. It's actually open available, so like you can just go download it and read it.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, that would be I think it'd be an interesting read for sure. So is the Pacific hiding a graveyard of giants?
I do think that there were giants.
I do too.
I do believe in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot of conversation in multiple different societies that talk about giants.
Yeah.
And so it's not hard to see that there's something to it. The end of Lemuria didn't come with a whisper. It came with a roar that tore the sky in two. 150,000 years ago, the cradle of humanity, the continent of Mu, began its final descent into the abyss. According to Wishar, the destruction of Lemuria wasn't just a flood, it was a global reconfiguration. Tremendous magnetic waves began to move Earth from east to west with a force that nobody can imagine. The ground beneath was liquefying as the continents themselves began to drift like ice in a storm.
So this is basically Moses and the flood.
Or what we would consider the tectonic plates shifting.
Well, I think a lot of people believe, obviously everybody has different beliefs, but a lot of people believe that like in Moses' time, or Noah?
Noah.
Not Moses.
No.
I'm like, hold on, that sounds wrong.
Noah and the ark. Yeah.
And the ark. That's when all this happened too.
Yeah.
So this is like a different take on it.
Yep, exactly.
On how it happened.
The landmass connecting Asia and Africa sank beneath the waves. Europe rose from the depths, dripping with the salt of a new era. And as the American continent drifted westbound, slamming into the western coast of Lemuria, a final violent collision of the worlds. A majority of Lemuria vanished, swallowed by the Pacific, in a cataclysm that erased cities, records, and millions of lives. But as the water rose, the survivors looked to the only thing left standing, the high, mountainous peaks of the eastern coast. They looked to Mount Shasta. The cataclysm didn't just change the map, it changed us. Survey tells us that the environment and the climate of this new broken world forced the survivors to adapt, changing their habits, their nature, and their very appearance. We're talking about the sinking of continents and the giant survivors. But how do we know any of this? According to Wishar, the Lemurians weren't just the survivors. They were also the world's first and most meticulous librarians.
So do they keep their stuff in Mount Shasta?
Yeah, in the city of Telos.
Mm-hmm.
So he claims that he spent 10 years immersed in a secret archive, thousands of ancient manuscripts and crude maps amassed by the Oriental Literature Syndicate. He wasn't looking at history books as we know them. He was looking at the detailed records, the tabulated facts of a race that believed every event, every scientific discovery, and every spiritual law needed to be etched in the memory of the world. But what did these records look like? Some believe they weren't just written on paper. In the high vibration lore of Telos, the Lemurians are said to have used light language and crystalline storage. So like using crystals to store the information.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a Lemurian seed crystal? Those strange horizontal grooves along the sides. Believers call them barcodes. Etched memory strips encoded with the spiritual teachings of history of a civilization that knew its time was running out.
So how do you access
Yeah,
that?
I was going to say, so if that's where the barcodes are and these
Right.
crystals, how do you extract the information?
So there is a belief that you access all of this through psychic energy and through like astral projection and telepathy.
Oh, yeah, because, we all can just do that.
Yes.
I mean, I can't. I don't know about you guys, but...
Well, I'm out.
Just kidding.
Yeah, here's the very interesting fact to it, is that there is still a group of individuals that believe that they are, even to this day, are in communication with the Lemurians that live under Mount Shasta, and that they have their own like hierarchical religious alignment with them.
Okay, so if they believe they're in communication,
Yes.
they don't know, they just believe they are. And what sort of things make them believe that they are?
We'll get to some of that.
I gotta wait.
I know, right?
I got so many questions.
I will tell you this, during my time looking into all of this, I came up with way more questions
Than answers
to any of this.
See, and that's what makes it hard for me to wrap my brain around something like this, is if I can't get my questions answered.
Or any of them answered.
Yeah. Or if it's all psychically done, then it's like...
Yeah. No, I get it.
It's harder to follow or put any stock into something like this when researching it just brings up more questions but no answers.
Well, but I think that's always the challenge with some of these pieces, right? Even kind of looking into the paranormal stuff, a lot of times we end up with a lot of questions.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely. And it's very true. Like, I come back with a lot more questions than I do answers. That's for sure.
But it's, for me to get some answers or some understanding and follow the logic of it helps, even though multiple more questions may arise.
Right.
With this, I feel like it's going to be one of those stories where no questions will be answered.
But if they are, it's in a psychedelic way.
Right. That it's really hard to, wrap your mind around.
Access.
Yeah.
Right. And this is going to come about as to how people communicate with them and how they choose to be seen. And I think that's the challenge of all of it.
Right.
Because it's like the normal person can't travel there. And so it's not like you can just go there.
But
physically.
But if they say that this is where we all came from.
Right.
or originated from, which I don't believe, but
Fair enough.
at all. But wouldn't we be able to have some of these abilities to be able to understand and communicate?
Well, and that's why people can. There are people that
Right,
claim
but
to
if
be
we
the ones
all came from there, why can't we even hone into a little
Well,
bit of it?
okay. In that avenue, though, I mean, if you look at it, I think we all, to a degree, have the ability to communicate with spirits and to feel their presence, right? We call it being sensitive. But I think there's a lot of us that just have turned it off. We've closed that door.
And that's fair. So what you're saying is it's probably one of those things like with ghost hunting, the more you do it, the more you kind of can feel the energy shifts and you start to sense certain things.
Right.
So it's like if you were to go to Mount Shasta and maybe spend time there, maybe you would be able to hone in on some things.
Right. And they actually
and pick up on things.
There are two different groups out there in that area that do just that.
Okay.
That they go out and actually go out to Mount Shasta to communicate. And then one group even has like Zoom meetings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. You know how ghost hunters have a specific look? In general,
Yes.
I kind of wonder
if they do.
if they have a specific look, like a hippie, you know?
That's kind of what you picture, a real tall hippie.
Or like a
Beads.
really not down to earth, but you know what I mean? Really earthy
Woodsy?
vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, definitely. Definitely have that more earthy type of vibe to them.
Okay, so let's move down this trail a bit and see where it's going.
Let's go into some sightings, right? Because
okay,
with all of this, it's without people having experienced anything. We're just talking about weird things that people think happen. But it was a Eureka teenager, Frederick Spencer Oliver, who ended up blowing this mystical door wide open in the 1880s when he claimed that an ancient native of Lemuria had used him to write a manuscript that described a buried city with walls polished as by jewelers though excavated by giants. So residents who say they speak with the inhabitants of this underground realm have since multiplied. Oliver was the earliest channeler in this area, and historian William Macy, who put together a vast bibliography of primary sources on the mountain and its lore for the College of Siskiyou. Now, Macy said, you can hardly miss a channel walking down Main Street. So moving forward into 1932, the LA Times Magazine article by Edward Lancer wrote, seeing Mount Shasta ablaze with a strange reddish green light from the window of his Oregon-bound train. Lemurians, a fellow passenger confided. Returning to explore the legend further, Lancer was told that tall men from a sunken civilization were known to patronize local stores, buying enormous quantities of sulfur, as well as a great deal of salt.
Breakfast?
Sulfur?
Right?
And salt?
I mean, you got to wonder. So, in a stroke of good fortune for the Mount Shasta economy, the items were always paid for with gold nuggets, and the gold always far exceeded the value of the merchandise.
Wow. Gold
So I just got to
nuggets.
put up a shop and then I can get gold nuggets?
I think so.
Let's do it.
Sweet.
It'd be kind of neat, wouldn't it?
It would be kind of cool.
Yeah. What I found interesting is looking into it when I was looking at trying to find more people who have witnessed Lemurians. It came to find that a lot of people that live in and around Siskiyou County all kind of believe, like there's a group of them all believe that this is going on, that these Lemurians exist.
Okay, now I'm starting to think like, you know how in ghost hunting, we believe that if somebody tries hard enough to create something, they can create it, like Slenderman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like bring it into existence.
Bring it into existence,
Topa.
exactly. So I kind of wonder if this is what that's like.
Ooh, maybe that's where it's heading, huh?
Could be.
Yeah. Like if you have enough people who believe in something, that it kind of creates it.
Interesting.
It's very possible. Very, very possible. So, moving on to probably one of the more famously known individuals associated to Mount Shasta and the Lemurians. According to Leland Lovelace in his book Lost Mines and Hidden Treasures, J.C. Brown was a British prospector employed by the Lord Cowdrey Mining Company of London to look for gold in the mountains of Northern California. It was said that he discovered a lost underground city beneath Mount Shasta in 1904.
That's really cool.
Yeah. At that time, he discovered a cave which sloped downwards for 11 miles. At the end of the tunnel, he found an underground village filled with gold, strange hieroglyphics, shields, and mummies, some being up to 10 feet tall.
Ooh.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that there weren't mile markers. So how did he know it's 11 miles?
That's a very good question.
But I also think like people were hiking a lot or who, do those types of things kind of can gauge about how far they've gone.
I wonder how accurate
So
it
I
is.
wonder if that was something where it's like a hypothetical guess.
It would have to be, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there is a way, like in land navigation, if you know how far if you have a consistent stride
Mm-hmm.
and you know how many steps it takes to go, let's say 100 meters, you could use the number of steps you take to extrapolate to the longer distances.
Yeah.
Or even like the amount of time he's been doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd be so lost.
right?
Oh, me too.
I must have gone 50 miles. It's been one.
I know that
It's
would
been,
be me.
it's been
100%.
50 feet. We're so far in. Oh, there's the entrance.
The entrance is right there.
Turn around.
It was said that he left everything as it was and left the cave. The next 30 years of his life are shrouded in mystery. What we do know is that during this time, he had studied literature, philosophy, and in particular accounts of the lost continent of Mu and the lost civilizations of Lemuria. After 30 years, he resurfaced and told his story to John C. Root, proceeded to gather an exploration team in Stockton, California. It was said that 80 people joined the team, but on the day the team was to set out, Brown did not show up, and he was never heard from again. He was said to have died and been buried in Nevada in 1936. As he never disclosed the location of the entrance to the cave, his secret died with him. However, many people today remain convinced that J.C. Brown had actually discovered the entrance into Lemuria, or what is left of it.
See, now I do believe that it's possible to find places like that because this earth has been around for a really long time. There's been a lot of people. There's been, people living in all sorts of places.
Sure.
And I have no doubt. And there's tons of places that you can go that have caverns and that have, all these cool hidden spots to hide things and whatnot.
Lava tubes and all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah. Like Nutty Putty Caves.
Right?
I've navigated some of that and it's pretty wild, but it's hard for me that nobody's found it since.
Well,
it's been over 100 years. You would think something would be found by now.
But what about the Lost Dutchman mine in Arizona? I mean, that's never been found.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, people have been looking at that for hundreds of years now, too.
But the question comes about, is it even real?
Well, and that breaks out to the Lost Dutchman, too, right? Like,
Yeah.
both of them are the same question.
Right.
Is it,
Yeah.
is it even real?
It would be
Exactly.
cool to go and get like a drone with IR or something that can detect temperature change
Well,
and see if you can find something that does that. Or like,
part of it, too, though, is like it is an old volcano.
right.
And so, which means there's going to be lava tubes and lava tunnels.
Sure.
So if there's a lot of them, maybe it's a matter of circumnavigating the right one. And if it is 11 miles down, I mean, that is a walk.
How did
Gentle
he find
slope.
his way back out is my question.
Exactly. I mean, he was an experienced miner. So I would assume that he was very comfortable underground. He was he was easily able to navigate around.
Right. But if you've never been there before and are unfamiliar with that particular path and stuff and area, then how would you?
I mean, it's a good question.
And it's like lava tubes versus
Mm-hmm.
just regular mining.
Yeah,
You know, it's going to look very different.
Yeah.
it is.
But
I mean,
it would be interesting to know.
How to pick their brains,
Uh-huh.
right?
right.
If only we could.
Right, exactly. So then we get into probably the most interesting individual I've come across looking into this subject. And I don't know quite how to pronounce his name.
Go for it.
I would say it's Yoja. It's Joy backwards. That's his name.
Yoj.
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 Yoj. So, while many hunters of the Lemurian legend look for physical tunnels and gold-filled caves, some say the entrance isn't found with a shovel, but with the mind. Enter Yoj. He says, I wasn't walking on dirt anymore. I was standing on the floors of pure light. The Lemurians, they didn't speak with mouths. They spoke with colors and feelings. They showed me the great central sun. They showed me the mountain is just a shell, a physical mask for a city that exists in the fifth dimension.
Wouldn't somebody see them?
There have been sightings.
There have been.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put a pause on Yosh just for a second. There's a story of a guy who was out hiking with his buddies. And as they were walking down a very well marked path, he felt this weird shift.
Like air?
Yeah.
Energy, probably.
Like energy, like an energy shift. And as he was walking, he noticed that he was walking alone now. And there was nobody else on this path. Even though it is a well-marked, well-traveled trail, he's now alone. And as he continued walking, he ran into an individual who was in a white robe, very tall, and was talking to him.
So that sounds kind of like a different dimension.
Exactly. And then he left and went back. And after a while of walking back, he did the same thing. He went through a shift of energy.
And then there were multiple people on the hiking trail, and
where he hadn't left.
Like he hadn't left, and just
right, exactly. And so I think that's why I think Yosh is talking about is that this is more interdimensional, less physical.
Got it.
Which doesn't make it any less. Doesn't make it any easier to believe.
But also, though, I've heard of stories, and you guys have heard of John or Mr. Ballin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he will share stories of people who in other countries have been walking to work or what have you, or skiing.
They end up
in 1,000 miles away
Yeah.
or hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
And it could be, and they're like, what the heck is going on? Where am I? And I'm in all these ski clothes in a place that I shouldn't be wearing ski clothes.
Yeah.
Or I was on my way to work and now I'm in a whole nother country. Like, what the heck?
Crazy.
So
one of these individuals believed that they were taken to Venus, where they learned about the Lemurians and their ways. So we're not talking just...
That's a little far-fetched for me.
Why,
I know.
Why Venus, though?
That's because that's part of their... So that's part of the Lemurians...
Training Academy?
Basically. It's like the religious center.
Education center.
Yeah, that's a little far-fetched for me.
Especially if they're supposed to be an ancient civilization.
So there's... Okay. So
on Earth.
So part of the belief is that they're not just ancient individuals, they're also ancient aliens. Like they came from...
like UFO?
Like they came from Alpha Centauri.
Maybe that explains the red-green light.
Right.
Could.
Or that was just the Northern Lights.
I mean, at this point, who knows?
We're just going with it.
Yeah. So back to Yosh. So to the skeptics, it's a hallucination brought on by thin air and solitude. But those who have followed him up the jagged rocks of Bunny Flat, the experience is chillingly real. They report a sudden drop in temperature, the feeling of invisible hands on their shoulders, and a terrifyingly beautiful sense that they are being scanned by something deep within the stone.
Being scanned gives you a beautiful feeling?
You know...
I mean, that's not what I hear when people put on the probulator
No.
when they get abducted.
No. I mean, it's a very interesting concept, right? But he says that the Lemurians are very selective. They don't just let anyone into the City of Light. That's what they call it. So if you go up there with a closed heart or worse, a camera, you might find that the mountain pushes you back.
Camera's worse than a closed heart?
Proof.
It's evidence.
It's evidence.
Yeah, but couldn't they, if they have all these abilities, couldn't they just like bust your camera with their mind?
How many people have said they've tried to take pictures of UFOs or of Bigfoot and it only comes out blurry? I mean, it's...
Every one of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
And Loch Ness, every single one.
So now we're going to move to the interesting individual of Carl Landers. Or I should say the disappearance of Carl Landers.
Ooh. Got lost in the mountain.
I like
latitudes.
mysteries.
So in May of 1999, Carl Landers was a man with a plan. He was 69 years old, a marathon runner, and a veteran of the mountains. He was fit, he was focused, and he was just one summit away from completing a lifetime goal. Carl was at Camp 5050 on Mount Shasta, 10,000 feet up, where the air starts to taste like metal and the silence feels heavy. He was with two friends, Barry and Milton, but that morning Carl wasn't feeling right. He told them he'd head out toward Lake Helen, just a short half-mile stretch of open trail to get a head start while they packed up. His friends watched him. They literally saw him round the bend, a speck of rust-colored jacket against the blinding white snow. They were only minutes behind him. It's a straight shot on an open bowl of snow where you can see for miles. There are no trees to hide behind, no cliffs to fall off, and on that morning, there were dozens of other climbers already at the lake, their tents dotting the ice like colorful confetti. When Barry and Milton reached the lake 10 minutes later, they asked around for the man in the rust-colored coat. The climbers looked at them blankly. Nobody had seen him. In those 10 minutes on a clear day in an open field of snow, Carl Landers simply didn't exist. The search that followed was one of the largest in Shasta's history. Black Hawk helicopters with thermal imaging scanned every inch of the rock. Dogs were brought in. They couldn't find a scent. They found no footprints leading off trail. No dropped water bottles. No scraps of orange fabric. It was as if the mountain had opened its mouth and swallowed him whole. To the investigators, he's a tragic victim of a hidden crevice. But to the locals who know the legend of Telos, Carl didn't fall down. He was pulled in.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because the first thing I thought was, the snow crevices that are just miles deep.
Oh, yeah. Like in the glacier.
Yeah. But
And
But I
mean,
think
who
you would have
knows?
heard him scream or something.
Not necessarily.
But you would have seen a hole.
Yeah.
Usually, yes.
Usually. Like, it's like, whoop. There's a hole that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, he's down there.
Considering that there was others there.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it? It's
That's where I
strange.
think,
strange.
that's where I wonder if it's like the dimension thing. Say it's
Mhm.
real, right?
Right.
Say this whole dimension thing is real, which I do believe that there are different dimensions. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
But what if it was one thing where he took another step and all of a sudden he's in a different dimension?
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? If he's just like the other hiker, because the hiker story was actually on Mr. Ballin. Where we found it. But just like that, right? He was there in, what'd you say, our dimension 1 second and gone the next. I mean, how would you walk up and down a path that nobody sees you walking up and down and you don't see anybody else, and the next minute you're back on the path and there are people all around you?
Yeah.
And it's not like you can control that.
Right.
Strange.
Yeah. Now I think it's this one is, I think, the most interesting one. It's called The Missing Boy. Search and rescue missions on Mount Shasta are usually grim affairs, a race against hypothermia and the jagged terrain. But in the autumn of 2011, a 3-year-old boy vanished from a family campsite, sparking a search that would end with a story of so chilling it made seasoned rangers question the very ground they stood on. The boy was gone for 5 hours. 1 minute, he was playing near the tree line. The next, he was a ghost. When he was finally found, miles away and seemingly unharmed, his parents expected tears. Instead, they got a report from the edge of reality. He told them he had been taken, not by a person, by what he called the others. He described being led into a dark opening in the rock, a cave that felt like a house. He spoke of beings that didn't look like us. He said they were tall and shimmering, and that they sat him down in a room filled with light. The boy claimed that after they rejected him, he was suddenly back on the mountain, right where the searchers found him. To a doctor, it is the overactive imagination of a traumatized toddler. To the followers of the Lemurian myth, it is a rare, terrifying glimpse into the biological curiosity of the inhabitants of Telos.
So it makes me wonder, what are they looking for?
Yeah, especially if they took him and then rejected him.
I don't know.
So you must have to fit a very strict and specific type.
Maybe they're looking at bloodlines. Maybe
I don't know. Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, because it's not like anybody comes back from it. So to tell you what they really are looking for.
Yeah, and if you're going off a 3-year-old,
yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah. But see, there's a thing though too, right? It's like 3-year-olds are pretty honest when it comes to stuff.
Yep.
I mean, not that they can't fabricate things, but most of the time, they just speak whatever they see, whether you want them to or not.
100%.
Right? And so it seems like if he's telling people that he was here and it was led into a cave in the side of the rock, and then the next he was there back where they found him, it's hard not to take the kid at some face value on that.
Well, because somebody would have seen him.
Yeah.
And how is a 3-year-old going to traverse that far in 5 hours?
Yeah. Didn't they have, wasn't there someone who actually went along the path that it would take to go from where he ended up, and there was no way he could have gotten there in 5 hours?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading about that. It was in a different spot, but yeah.
Yeah. Or it could have been even with a different kid. But
Yeah.
there was someone who traced where from point A to point B, and it took them way longer. And they are really experienced in hiking. It took them way longer than the 5 hours.
Yeah.
Like, there's no possible way that would have happened.
Well, and the thing is, like, in some parts of that area, because we've driven, like I said, we've driven basically almost all around Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
There's lava fields, and they're not that. I mean, they look really cool, but they would be challenging to traverse for a full-grown adult.
Yeah, let alone a 3-year-old.
Yeah, but even that, like, even let's say it's just an open field, because there's that too, right? There's open fields on the side of this mountain. Even if they were by one of those, the chance of a kid traversing miles of distance in 5 hours is pretty low. Not that they're not capable, but you'd have to, like, be going in a dedicated direction. You watch most 3-year-olds, they kind of meander left and right, and they don't go in a straight line.
Right.
Right.
According to Yosh, if you want to see a Lemurian and interact with them, there are rules. Now, like I said before, these are the rules that he claims he received from them while on Venus.
All right, let's get into this.
Remember, though,
Buckle
we're not
up.
talking physically there. We're talking astral projection on
Yeah,
Venus.
I know.
You must ask permission. Before stepping onto the higher trails like Bunny Flat or Panther Meadows, you must internally ask the mountain's guardians for permission to enter. A sudden sense of dread or quick change in weather is seen as a no. Check your vibration. Lemurians are said to exist in a higher frequency.
Which, in spiritual terms, high frequency is good, low frequency is bad. So, like, evil spirits communicate in a low frequency, and good spirits communicate in a high frequency.
Right.
Yeah. So it says, if you approach with fear, greed, or skepticism, the legend says the gates to Telos will remain invisible to you.
Well, I'm out.
The other thing, rule number 3, watch for lenticulars. If a saucer-shaped lenticular cloud forms over the peak, it is considered a cloaking device. Observers are warned not to point or shout, as it may be interpreted as a hostile threat by the craft within.
Craft?
Yes, remember, they're interplanetary beings. So they
but this is the first they've mentioned a craft.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on.
I'll get into a little more of those pieces.
Okay.
After these rules.
Okay.
It just gets better, I'm telling you.
I'm enjoying it already.
Never follow the golden light. Paranormal accounts warn of hikers seeing a warm golden glow between the trees at night.
It's called a fairy.
or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Both wrong countries.
Oh, sorry.
Legend says following it without a guide can lead to missing time or being lured into physical crevices that are impossible to escape.
All right, noted.
Right? Silence is mandatory in sacred areas like the McLeod Falls portals. Loud noises are believed to shatter the vortex. Most seekers maintain total silence to better hear the telepathic whispers of the inhabitants.
So you're telling me not to bring my bells?
Yes.
Or whistles.
Got it.
Or firecrackers. Although you're probably getting arrested anyway, because I think those are illegal in California. Leave no trace, physical or psychic. Beyond the standard hiking rule, psychic cleanliness is expected. This means leaving behind any heavy emotional baggage or negative intentions before reaching the high energy zones.
So she's just cleaning her
I'm
psychic
cleansing myself.
energy.
So if I like have negative energy and I'm trying to cleanse it, I can't cleanse it there.
Cleanse it before
entering.
You have to be clean. So it's like taking a shower.
Yes, take a psychic
shower.
Take a psychic shower before you come.
Use your psychic body wash. Clean really well.
Scrub twice.
It's right. Respect the guardians. Some stories mention gray men or small people who act as scouts for the Lemurians.
Aliens.
Yes. Aliens.
Got it.
If you see a figure that looks wrong or out of place,
aliens,
you are advised to look down and keep walking.
Got it.
Got it.
We need a checklist.
Right?
Print out checklist. Let's go to Mount Shasta and we'll go through it before we...
Well, wouldn't you know? I got the checklist right here. We're good to go.
What would be hilarious if we did, you know how people have like Walmart bingo? Let's do Mount Shasta bingo. Circle of clouds above the Mount Shasta?
Shaped like a saucer? Check. Little gray dudes? Check.
Lost time? Check.
Little yellow light? Check.
So the website that I found that is very heavy Lemurian, it talks about a lot of this other history that I didn't necessarily want to get into because it was...
Even more far-fetched?
Yes. So part of the Lemurian legend also ties in Atlantis.
Oh, okay.
It goes everywhere. Venus, Atlantis.
Right. So according to the legend, both Atlantis and Lemuria occupied the same time frame. Different sets of beings, right? Higher level beings. There was a disagreement between the two groups. One wanted to share technology and information with the rest of humanity that was on Earth at the time. The other wanted to keep it away from them.
Which is probably the smarter choice.
Right. So they fight over it.
Oh, boy.
Well, there is, with Atlantis, they're coming out with more and more actual substantial evidence that it really did exist. And I actually follow a girl that talks a lot about Atlantis. It's one of her favorite things. And it is fascinating, the things that science is coming up with showing that it really did exist. But the theory is that there was a big war, and that is why the technology no longer exists.
The interesting part is they claim it was a thermonuclear war.
What?
Yes.
So they had like way major advanced technology in Atlantis.
Yeah. And so Lemuria would have been the same way. So they're both these. So the way they described it is Lemurians were high energy, like high vibration, high frequency, and Atlanteans were low frequency.
See, I wonder if it's like spiritual versus physical.
No, that's very possible.
Because if Atlantis, that is physical, and I can't remember Lemuria people
spiritual
or spiritual.
Could be.
This also makes me think of the other episode we did, or I should say I was part of, a couple seasons ago, where we talked about the Watchers.
Yep.
And this very much has Watcher vibes to it. So I'm not saying that, like, I think part of the history pieces of it, like, I don't necessarily think is entirely true. In fact, part of it, the stuff with J.C. Brown, the part I left out a little bit of it, was the fact that most of this stuff has been, I want to say, discredited according to what we believe scientifically has happened to Pangea.
Yes.
Okay.
So we know how great our scientists are with certain pieces of reality. But they're saying plate tectonics is what moved
Right.
the continents apart. Well, he's saying that it was magnetic energy. Which one's right? I mean, both are saying the exact same thing. Continents moved, things changed.
Well,
Right.
what I find interesting is that they're claiming the things that have actually happened at different times and in different circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
such as Pangea and Atlantis.
Yep.
So, like, there's a reason Atlantis doesn't exist anymore, and it is because of a war, but not with them. Not as the world sees it,
Right.
and not as the world is discovering it. So, and people also believe, Pangea didn't happen because of magnetic energy, and that there was a civilization that survived and it was flooded, and the rest of us believe it was Noah. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to think a certain way when you've been taught your entire life one way.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's like, well, actually it happened this way, but it's super fantastical and you just have to believe it.
Yeah, that's
Because
tough.
it's all
Yeah.
spiritual. You
That's
know what I mean?
a tough pill to swallow.
That's why it's making it hard for me.
yeah.
But do I believe that there are cities that existed in mountains, in whatever? Actually, yeah.
I don't doubt
don't
it.
have a problem believing that.
Yeah.
Well, even even in Utah, there are ancient dwellings that are up
Yeah.
in the mountains.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like in the sides of mountains, and we're not
That you
talking.
can still see.
Yeah.
And they're like way high up, and you wonder how in the crap did they live there and get
Right.
up and down every day?
Well, yeah, because they're up 100 feet up the side of a cliff,
Yeah.
and the water is in the valley below, and so it's like,
And there is
how'd you get
no,
up there?
yeah, and there's no path.
No.
No,
You don't see a path.
Nope.
So it's like, how did they do that? So yes, like I do believe there's cool things like that happened. But the whole fantastical part of it is
It's hard.
real hard for me to wrap my brain around.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I'm there with you.
I agree with you. This one is a challenging one. I found it very interesting, and mainly because I think there are people that have had very strange experiences on Mount Shasta.
I would
Right.
really love to see the magnetic energy that is there. I really
That would be cool to go and take some
to
equipment up
measure
there.
it and
Oh, yeah.
see, because I really wonder if there's something in the earth that causes that magnetic energy, or I mean, this is kind of throwing this way out there, but is it possible that these people who've experienced time change or experienced going from point A to point B and not knowing how they got there, changing dimensions, if you will,
Mhm.
what if that has to do with the magnetic energy in the earth? What if something that the earth can create or does create naturally makes this happen, and you just happen to be in the right place at the right time to experience that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always the talk of ley lines, energy lines across the earth and how they intersect and all
Right,
of these pieces. And that we know that the earth is spinning and that there's magnetic energy being created. That's why,
Right.
certain things actually work in this existence. So it would be very interesting. We have, look at all our equipment, right?
Right.
EMF detectors. That's energy. All of the things that we carry to do paranormal investigations are really based on the detection of energy.
Right.
And there are cases of look at Skinwalker Ranch, the ridgeline behind Skinwalker Ranch. It has ridiculously high baseline EMF.
Mm-hmm. See, and that's where it makes me wonder if there was something in the earth that caused maybe a spike,
Right.
right where that person was at the right time.
But then did the person interdimensionally travel distances, or did the magnetic spike and EMF or the magnetic spike and energy flux cause a memory lapse so that they didn't remember traveling that distance.
That could very well possibly be, but also there's people around them that didn't see them anymore.
Right.
So, but I have experience when I'm driving going from, there was one time I went from like Salt Lake to Spanish Fork, and I don't remember any of it. And I wasn't tired. I was totally fine singing songs in my car. And all of a sudden it was like I kind of like snapped out of it. And I was like, I'm in Spanish Fork. What the heck? I know I changed lanes. I know I like I'm a pretty safe driver, I feel. So I was like, how did that just happen? You know? So I wonder if it's like, is there something? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, but.
What do you think?
I have no idea. There's a lot there to unpack.
So much
100%.
It's like, where do you start? You could go down such a rabbit hole with this.
In every way.
Every way.
I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I don't want a 7-hour episode because we could easily get into all of it.
Yeah, I don't see it being a difficult thing to make a very, very long episode.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that people have had these, I think the part that Lemurians aside to that avenue, right? Like, I think people get into trying to explain the unexplainable or things that we can't explain now. That's why we get all sorts of weird theories on things. But things are happening to people up there on the mountain.
Look, I don't doubt that things are happening. The explanation behind what is the question.
Yeah. And so they actually have the coordinates to two of these vortexes, that one of these groups claimed to have opened.
Okay.
And so like we could technically hike up there and verify and look at the energy shifts and changes in the area. Because if you have an active vortex, that should mean that the energy in and out of it is entirely different.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
I've also heard of a lot of people that have hiked Mount Shasta, different parts of it, have come across creatures too. Like Bigfoot.
Yep.
You know, or Bigfoot-like that
Yeti.
actually, yeah, that has hurled like big rocks.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
big rocks. And even logs at them.
So Mount Shasta is a paranormal
hotspot
because not only do you have this piece of Lemurians in that associated also with the aliens encounters, right? On top of the mountain. I think those two pieces are combined. You also have cryptids. And then you got straight up paranormal.
Yeah.
With ghosts and everything else going on over there. And so there's a lot going on in that mountain.
Something for everybody.
Right.
Know, right?
Something for everybody. So I narrowed it down just for this episode. I narrowed it down to just this part.
Well, I think that was enough because that was a lot to unpack.
Yep.
Yeah. My brain hurts.
And I'm trying to give some people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
how they experience things. Like, well, maybe, I don't know.
It's one of those things that I think, you know, not to discredit the people that believe in it or anything else or that have experienced it, but I think it's one of those things in order to put for like, say somebody who hasn't gone through it, you would have to actually experience it firsthand yourself.
Well, and I think that's the way it goes, right? Because it's the same thing with ghosts.
Exactly.
People are like, I don't believe in ghosts. They don't exist.
Until they have an experience.
You have an experience.
That they can't explain. Yeah.
Right? And aliens, the same thing with aliens and other cryptids.
All of it.
Yep. So we've traveled from the sun-drenched plains of ancient Mu to the frozen silent ridges of Mount Shasta. We've looked over the maps of Wishar and heard the haunting stories of those who have vanished into the whiteout, leaving nothing but questions behind. Is Mount Shasta a geological powerhouse? A place of tectonic shifts and thinning oxygen that plays tricks on the human mind? Or is it truly a city of light, a fortress for a race that outlasted the sinking of a continent? Perhaps the answer isn't in the rocks or the records, but in the mountain itself. A place that seems to act as a mirror, reflecting back whatever mystery you are brave enough to go looking for. The next time you see a saucer-shaped cloud settling over that jagged peak, or feel a vibration that doesn't quite match the wind, don't just look with your eyes. Remember the detailed records, remember the walkers in white, and remember that according to the legends, we aren't just visitors on the coast. We are the survivors.
Moo.
And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.